She was just trying to get around a slow driver on a country road. A normal Tuesday. Nothing special. And then, gunshots. Her rear window exploded. Glass everywhere. And the man who pulled the trigger? He turned his car around and disappeared into the countryside like nothing had happened. This is a story about what happens when road rage stops being an inconvenience and becomes a crime scene. And if you've ever wondered what your legal options are after something terrifying like this, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do. Let's set the scene. West Michigan. Rural country roads. The kind of roads where there's not much traffic, not many witnesses, and a whole lot of open space. A woman is driving, minding her own business, when she notices the driver ahead of her is behaving strangely. He's brake checking her. That's when someone in front of you taps their brakes suddenly and repeatedly to intimidate or harass the driver behind them. And he's slowing down dramatically. We're talking 10 miles per hour on a road where you'd expect to be doing 50 or more. So she does what any reasonable driver would do. She waits for an opportunity and she passes him. Clean pass, legal pass, she moves on. As far as she's concerned, the interaction is over. She got around an aggressive driver. End of story. Except it wasn't the end of the story, not even close. When she reaches a stop sign just ahead, the situation escalates into something she could never have anticipated. The man she passed, apparently furious that she had the audacity to drive around him, pulls up and opens fire on her vehicle. Multiple shots. Her rear door and rear window are hit. Glass shatters. The shots ring out across the quiet rural landscape, and then he runs. Just like that. He fires at her car and takes off, disappearing in a specific direction that she was alert enough to notice and remember, even in the shock of the moment. Now let's be clear about what just happened here, because it's easy to hear a story like this and let the shock of it blur the details. This woman did nothing illegal. She passed a slow driver. That's it. What the other driver did, firing a weapon at an occupied vehicle, is among the most serious crimes a person can commit on a public road. We're not talking about a fender-bender dispute. We're not talking about someone yelling out a window or cutting someone off. We're talking about attempted murder, or at minimum, felonious assault with a firearm. This is as serious as it gets outside of someone actually being hit. And here's where the story gets really interesting from a legal standpoint. Because she did everything right after it happened. And because of that, law enforcement actually has something to work with. After the shots were fired and the driver fled, she called the police immediately. And this part is crucial. She remembered which direction the vehicle went. That detail, as small as it might seem in the chaos of the moment, mattered. Because law enforcement was able to use that information as a starting point. Investigators went to work quickly. They canvassed the area for surveillance footage, and this is where technology that most people don't even think about becomes a critical piece of the puzzle. Neighbors in rural areas increasingly have Ring doorbell cameras and outdoor security systems. Gas stations almost universally have exterior cameras covering their lots and the roads nearby. Law enforcement pulled footage from these sources, and here's the part that should make the shooter very nervous. They got video of the vehicle, possibly even a readable license plate. Think about what that means. Even in a rural area, even with no traditional witnesses, this man left a digital trail. The cameras don't get scared. They don't forget details. They don't get confused by the shock of the moment. They just record, quietly and patiently, and then law enforcement comes knocking and asks to see what they captured. At the time this story was shared, it wasn't yet confirmed whether the suspect had been located. Police had not yet followed up with the victim directly, which is actually fairly common in active investigations. They're working the case, running down leads, verifying plate information, potentially executing a search warrant, and they don't always loop the victim in on every development in real time. That can be incredibly frustrating when you're the person whose window was just shot out, but it's a normal part of how these investigations operate. So the big question she was asking, and the question that matters to a lot of people watching this, is what happens next if they find him? What can she actually do? Let's break this down into two separate tracks, because there are two very different systems at work here, and they operate independently of each other. The first track is the criminal track. That's the government's case. The state of Michigan, through the prosecutor's office, will decide whether to file criminal charges against this man. She doesn't control that. She doesn't hire a lawyer for that process. The state handles it, but she is likely to be involved as a witness and a victim. She may be interviewed again. She may be asked to testify. In Michigan, like most states, crime victims have rights, including the right to be informed about the status of the case, the right to be heard at certain hearings, and the right to submit what's called a victim impact statement during sentencing if the person is convicted. Charges in a case like this could be severe. Firing at an occupied vehicle in Michigan can result in charges including felonious assault, discharge of a firearm from a vehicle, reckless discharge of a firearm, and depending on the circumstances and the prosecutor's read of intent, potentially more serious charges. We're talking about crimes that can carry years in state prison. The second track is the civil track, and this is where her question about suing comes in. Yes, she can sue. Independently of whatever the criminal case looks like, she has the right to pursue a civil lawsuit against this individual for damages. And here's what civil damages might include in a situation like this. First, there's property damage. Her vehicle was shot, the rear window and rear door were damaged. She's entitled to compensation for the cost of repairing or replacing those. That's the most straightforward piece. Second, there's pain and suffering. Being shot at is a traumatic experience. Even if she wasn't physically injured, the psychological impact of having someone fire a weapon at your car is real, documented, and compensable. Courts and juries take this seriously. Third, if she experienced any physical symptoms, and many people in situations like this do, whether from glass, the shock response, or related injuries, those medical costs are recoverable as well. Fourth, if this incident affected her ability to work, her income losses could be part of a claim. Now, here's the practical reality that any good attorney will explain. Civil suits are only worth pursuing if the defendant actually has money or assets to pay. If this guy is found, charged, convicted, and turns out to have nothing, no property, no savings, no income, winning a judgment against him might not result in any actual payment. This is sometimes called having a judgment you can't collect. It happens, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue the lawsuit, especially if there's reason to believe the person has assets, owns property, or carries any relevant insurance. Some auto insurance policies have provisions that might be relevant depending on how the incident is categorized, and that's definitely something worth exploring with a personal injury or civil attorney. Speaking of attorneys, this is exactly the kind of situation where at minimum, a free consultation with a personal injury lawyer is worth doing. Most personal injury attorneys offer free initial consultations, and they can evaluate her specific situation, assess the strength of a civil claim, identify what damages are available, and advise her on timing. Civil lawsuits have statutes of limitations, deadlines, so waiting too long can forfeit her rights to sue entirely. Here's what everyone watching this should take away, whether you've experienced something like this or you're just hoping you never will. Document everything immediately. Photos of the damage, photos of the scene, a written account of everything you remember while it's fresh, the names and badge numbers of officers you speak with, the report number for the police case, all of it. Follow up with the police. It's completely appropriate to call the investigating agency and ask for an update. You're the victim. You're allowed to ask questions. Ask about victim services. Most counties and many police departments have victim advocates or victim services programs that can help you understand your rights, connect you with resources, and keep you informed. And consult a civil attorney. Don't wait for the criminal case to resolve. The two tracks run simultaneously, and a good attorney can start building your civil case while the criminal process plays out. Road rage incidents are escalating across the country. What used to end with an angry honk or a shouted obscenity is increasingly ending with weapons drawn. Knowing your rights before something like this happens to you isn't paranoia, it's preparation. If something like this has happened to you, If you've been the target of a road rage incident involving a weapon, property damage, or threats, your first call should be to the police, and your second call should be to an attorney. You have more options than you probably realize, and you don't have to navigate it alone. If you found this video helpful, hit that subscribe button. We break down real legal situations in plain language every week, so that when life throws something unexpected at you, you already know what your next move is.